Everyone, this is Jake. This video is actually being made as the result of feedback and requests that I've had on the first two videos of the acoustic Neuroma experience that I put online. The first one back in 2015, and then the second one was in 2017. So I had my first acoustic Neuroma surgery in March of 2015. A couple weeks after that, I did the video and kind of shared with you my experience and what I went through in that process. Because when we first started looking up information on acoustic neuromas, it was a little scary. You know, literally my wife asked me not to look online, not to go to YouTube and look at things because there was so much out there that, you know, I wouldn't say negative, but just based on the experiences that people were having at the time, she didn't want me to deal with that while I was going into surgery. And I appreciated that. She was carrying that anxiety for me because she was watching it and thinking, oh my goodness, you know, what if my husband, what if he doesn't make it out of surgery, for one? What if he loses his facial nerve? What if he has trouble, with being able to blink, dry eyes, all these things that you start wondering what the future holds when you're going into a situation like that. So then the reason why we wanted to come out and do some videos is because my experience was much more positive. I mean, I'm still deaf in my left ear. I don't have a balance nerve on my left side. So, those were things that I knew going into the surgery that was going to happen. I was going to come out of that surgery being deaf and not having a balance nerve. But by the time I went in for my surgery, which I got diagnosed in December of 14, my surgery was March of 15, my hearing was already impacted by the tumor, and my balance nerve was already impacted by the tumor. When they did the tests to try to determine how degraded my balance nerve was, I had no reaction to the ice water that they put in my ear. None at all. The only thing I knew is it was cold, but it didn't make me want to jump off the bed, nothing like that. I just had no sensation. So I think that really helped me recover pretty quickly after my surgery. I was able to get back to work within 3 weeks of both surgeries. My body responded. It was rough. I would describe it, you just feel like you get hit by a truck, after the first surgery. You just feel miserable because, they cut you open. Then you're recovering, you get your stitches. You got the earpiece on that covers you, covers your ear. Then they want you to get up and walk around after you get the catheter out. And that's miserable, having the catheter pulled out, and you don't know how that's going to feel because you never experienced that before. Wasn't fun. So then they want you to walk with the towel. So all those things I covered in the first video to talk about my experience. But from a recovery standpoint, being able to get back to work within 3 weeks, I feel blessed that I was able to do that. I also feel blessed that I didn't have the significant fatigue that some people described in the video. I didn't have paralysis on the left side. So a lot of things went really well. I recovered physically pretty quick. I was already in pretty good shape before the surgery, both of them, and I was actively working out to try to get in the best shape that I could possibly get into before my surgeries. So that all helped. Had a great support system with my wife. So, those items are covered in the first two videos. So if you find this video first, go back and watch the other two, and you can kind of see, what that first acoustic Neuroma experience video was like. The second one was a little update after the second surgery. And then now this one, out of request from people that have visited the channel and watched those videos, they've been asking how I'm doing. 10 years later, I'm doing great. A lot of great things have happened in my family and my life. My wife and I are still married. We have 3 wonderful children. They're all adult children now. We have a 29-year-old son, 26-year-old middle daughter, and a 23-year-old youngest daughter. We have 2 grandchildren by our oldest son, a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old now, Camilla and Atreus. And we have now a 10-week-old grandson by our youngest daughter, Hannah, and his name is Everett James. So a lot of blessings in our life. Things are going very well. I'm still working for the same company that I was working for when I made the second video in 2017. So that's going well. I'm the vice president of risk management there, so I handle EPA, OSHA, insurance, property, casualty, those sort of things, deal with workplace accidents. And outside of that, I started a second career, which is photography. So the space that you see me in right now, this is my studio. And we started building this in June of 21, finished it in November of 22. And that all kind of started because of our youngest daughter. Although I've been doing photography and pictures, I've always loved that, the creative process of photography. My bachelor's and my master's degree is in environmental health and safety. So that's what I still do professionally. That's my day job. And then my other full-time job is now photography. And the reason is because although we started out, I've always taken pictures, like of the kids, but my daughter being a very good volleyball player in high school, my wife wanted to get a camera to take better pictures. So we bought a 5D Mark IV with a nice 7200 millimeter lens. And then we ended up buying a 35 millimeter lens, which actually I'm recording on right now with the Canon R5C. And we did that because of senior pictures. And we're like, well, you might want to take Tana senior pictures, so you need a 35 millimeter. And then I started doing some commercial work. I do a lot of professional headshots now. If you're on Facebook, my Facebook photography channel is J Warrington Visual Creations, if you want to stop by and say hi. So I do that on the evenings and weekends. So that's been a blessing as well. So I guess, in saying all that, when you think about how life has gone, I had the surgery in 15, but since the surgery in 15, things have been going well in my career. Actually, I was just talking to my boss today in a meeting, and I said, I asked him if he ever noticed the scar behind my left ear, and he said he never had. And I've been working with him for a long time. It's probably since 2019, maybe late 2018, and he's never known it. And most people would not know that I'm deaf in my left ear. And what was nice about when Hannah got into volleyball in 2016, I'd already had my first surgery, and I was the team videographer. So I sat down, or I stood down in the corner, and I videoed all the games because, for me, it was just nice being away from everybody because I didn't have to struggle to hear. And in loud noises like a gym, it's tough. When you got one ear and you have people on your left side and they're talking to you and you don't know they're talking to you, and then your wife has to say, hey, Jake, they're asking you a question, that's kind of challenging. So the volleyball thing really was good because I could just sit down on the floor and video the whole time and just immerse myself in that and focus on the game. So did that, and we started buying better and better equipment, which is video equipment as well, to do that. And that was a very fruitful time, just in learning how to take pictures and how to do videography. In that process, as I was coming out of surgery, it's just another passion, that you kind of grab a hold of and you focus on and you learn as much as you can. Our youngest daughter was first team All-State in volleyball as an outside hitter. She was a 5'6" outside hitter with a 31-inch vertical leap. So she got first team All-State, 18, 19, and then went on to college on a scholarship to play volleyball. So all of her activity, which, we supported all that, but that drove me purchasing new equipment, which then further led into what you see here behind me with the studio and what we've added on. So, that's been a blessing. Things have been going well there. So I essentially have two careers with the risk management job and then this job. But I think the important thing to take away from that is this doesn't have to hold you back. There are going to be situations where you're more uncomfortable. Loud environments, a lot of crowds, restaurants with bad acoustics, and also my wife and I have a pretty good system where I sit on the left so I can hear people to my right. And then in the same respect, when I'm walking with people, sometimes I gotta say, hold on a second, I want to switch the sides. So then I'll go on their left side. So when they're talking to me, I hear them with my right ear. But most people, including my boss of the last, few years, didn't even know I was deaf in my left ear because I don't really talk about that, and I really don't share that, and it really doesn't impact my job. He didn't even know I had a scar behind my left ear from the surgery. So, I think it's, life's kind of what you make it. And, I was dealt a pretty good hand with the surgery. Dr. Babu and the Michigan Ear Institute team did a wonderful job. And I got back to work very quick within 3 weeks. So, I recovered well And I think some of that had to do with the fact that everything was already pretty degraded. My hearing was degraded, my balance nerve was degraded, I was in good physical shape, so that helped the whole process as well. And since then, it hasn't caused me to slow down. So if you're dealing with this and you've been diagnosed with an acoustic neuroma, just know there's hope, and it's not all bad. And there are different people have different experience with this situation and this diagnosis. But just stay positive and think about how you can get yourself in the best physical condition and shape to go into surgery so you have the maximum recovery. And I think that's the thing that I learned as well. Just make sure you're going in, taking care of yourself, and when you get out, follow the doctor's instructions. Get back on your feet, start walking. Go with the exercise that they tell you to do when you're in recovery, and really just take your time, recover well, and get back at your life. But don't let it hold you back. Things have been really good with us. Our family's been blessed. It hasn't slowed me down. I'm doing well. I appreciate you guys who have reached out and said, hey, please post a video letting us know how you're doing. It's been 7 years since that second video, so a lot's happened in 7 years. We're still living at the same house that we were when we had the surgery, or when I had the surgery, but our kids are all grown up. 3 grandkids right now, and life keeps moving along, and you want to make the most of your time here. So regardless of if you got diagnosed with it, keep your chin up, and roll with the punches and do the best you can to prepare yourself, know what you're getting into, but just know it's not all negative, and there are positives in everything. And like the doctor told me, the last thing I'm worried about, Jake, is you losing your hearing, because I was really nervous about that, because I love listening to music, and it kind of bums you out. You get teary-eyed thinking about losing something that you've always had. But then when you come out of surgery, and you're recovering, and you still listen to music the same way. It still sounds just as good as it did before. It's just, you just have one less ear. So, that's a small price to pay. And, if you keep yourself in good shape and you're worried about your physical health, then, the balance nerve becomes less of a situation as well. And there are times that late at night, or I'm tired, if I turn quick, I'll kind of lose my balance. But overall, no one would ever know that I have one balance nerve or just one good ear. So, I don't use that as a crutch. I kind of go through life. I wouldn't have started if I had an issue hearing people and dealing with people. Well, I wouldn't have started doing photography, because that's all about people, and it's all about working with people. But in my day job, that's all I do too. I work with people, and those are things that you just have to learn to do, and you don't want it to hold you back. Life's too short for that. So, things are going well. I appreciate those that have reached out, asked how I've been doing. And I've been doing great. So thank you. And like I said, if you're coming across this video now, go back and watch the other 2. And please share your experience in the comments and let me know how you're doing. You guys take care. Bye-bye.